Hello and welcome to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. I'm Sarah Willis, and today we're talking about navigating irrigation rights in Central Oregon, and this is your comprehensive guide. So as you may know when you're watching this, Central Oregon has an arid climate and we are in the high desert. However, there's still a decent amount of agriculture here and farming and obviously lots of residential development. So in order to sustainably manage water resources in this region, understanding irrigation rights is pretty important, especially if you plan to have a piece of property that you plan to irrigate. All right, so you might ask yourself, what are irrigation rights to begin with, Sarah? They are legal permissions that are granted to individuals or entities that give people the authority to divert and use water from things like rivers, streams, and other water sources, sometimes below ground, for agricultural, industrial, or residential purposes. So in Central Oregon, water is a super precious resource. It's a finite resource, so it's particularly important to understand where it's coming from and how best to preserve it. So to understand irrigation rights fully in Central Oregon, it's really important to understand their historical context. Here in the area, water rights were established in the late 19th and 20th centuries, and people who pioneered this area were either individuals or organizations. They built intricate networks of, we've got above ground irrigation canals, there's ditches, and pipelines, all to bring water to the places that needed water, the arid land, in order to turn them into fertile agricultural areas. So there are a few different types of irrigation rights, and we're going to talk about those now. There's two different types actually that we're going to talk about. There's surface water rights and there's groundwater rights. Now, ones that are on the surface pertain to the use of water from the surface, as it sounds, right? So these are things like rivers, streams, and lakes. And individuals or organizations with surface water rights typically have specific allocations and priorities based on seniority. So for example, you get to do a certain number of inches per annual year. And if it's a drought year, for example, the older your water rights. And if it's a drought year, for example, the older your water rights, the higher seniority you have in order to use them. Now, groundwater rights involve the extraction of water from the ground, underwater aquifers. And this is where, again, we get into some finite resources here. So we rely on groundwater more and more as development happens, and wells have to keep getting dug deeper and deeper. So we talked about seniority a little bit, and in technical terms, we call this the prior appropriation doctrines. So all this really means is this is first priority to use the water, has the highest priority or seniority. So this is common with water rights throughout Oregon. So like I said before, in times where water is scarce or a drought year, senior water right holders get their allocations before people with newer water rights. Now, the governing body for water rights in the area is Oregon Water Resources Department, otherwise known as OWRD. And they play a central role in managing water resources in Central Oregon. They oversee the allocation of water rights. They're the people who deal with complaints when people are using them incorrectly and help people comply with certain regulations. And they work to balance competing demands for this very precious resource. Now, typically the rule goes that water rights run with the land and not the person. However, it is possible to transfer or sell your irrigation rights. So in some cases, people might choose to transfer their water rights if they're not using them. This is a valuable resource, and we know people are willing to pay a lot of money for this stuff. And this sometimes just physically will just involve like a change of point of diversion, point of use, or type of use. And really, obviously, this is something that has to be done with neighboring properties, and it involves a whole paperwork process with OWRD, who's going to oversee this whole transfer and make sure that everyone is complying with the proper state regulations in order to do so. So some tips that we have in protecting your water rights involve staying informed. So keep yourself up to date with water laws and regulations. Get involved with the community, right? Attend workshops, seminars, to really understand your rights and responsibilities. Ignorance is not an excuse. Maintain records. So water rights are always a use it or lose it type thing. So it's really important to maintain detailed records of your water usage, where it's coming from, and any changes that you might be making on your property in terms of that will affect your water rights. So record keeping, important for demonstrating compliance. And then also just if someone comes along and complains, helps you have evidence in terms of resolving disputes. And like I mentioned before, the use it or lose it rule, you can prove that you've been using your water rights and you're not going to lose them. Consulting experts. So seeking advice from experts in water law, such as attorneys or consultants, to help you navigate compliance when OWRD isn't giving you the answers you need, is obviously something that is advisable. Finally, get involved, participate in your local water management community, and voice your opinion. Not everybody agrees exactly with how water is managed here. There are some antiquated rules around the way water is used, so show up at meetings and voice your opinion. So in conclusion, irrigation rights are super critical and actually a really valuable part of real estate here in the Central Oregon area. If you're looking for a property that might have water rights or you need water rights, you know who to call to help you navigate this better, understand what your rights are, and we'll get you all the answers you need. Again, thank you for watching the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel, and please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the next one.